So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the MAP Talk, Tech Innovations in Museums. We're delighted to have all of you join us today. Today, we're very aware of the possibilities of technology to connect people and the world is increasingly so given the pandemic. And so I'm delighted to be part of this really groundbreaking launch of an extraordinary technology, India's first artificial intelligence powered conversational digital persona that's been built as a collaboration between MAP and Accenture. Over the course of this evening, we'll delve into the different technologies that have been used to create this immersive experience, and also the technologies that are going to power the museum experience going forward, and examine the genesis behind this initiative and the people behind it as well. So to briefly run you through the flow of the session, in the first half, we have two outstanding participants. We have a technology industry stalwart in Rekha Menon. She wears many hats in the IT industry. And then we have Abhishek Poddar, who wears many hats in many industries, including the art and museum space. So they'll help us set the context for what this partnership is about and what they're attempting to build at the intersection of technology, art, and human life. So this conversation will be followed with a short demo video film that will allow you to experience the kind of future we're going to build with technology in the art and museum spaces. This will be a very interesting demo that I'm looking forward to seeing as well for the first time. After that, we'll do a little bit of Q&A with both Rekha and Abhishek. And then we'll follow that segment with a discussion with the technologists behind this experience. And we'll also talk about how technology is going to transform the museum experience, the art world, and life in general going forward. We'll be joined by Shubhashis Sengupta, who's the technology fellow and head of research at Accenture, and Mayank Manish, who's the head of technology at MAP. That will end again with a Q&A where you can feel free to ask questions. Throughout the session tonight, please feel free to ping me with any questions you have in the chat window. We have a couple of folks online who are going to help curate the questions, and we'll try to get as many as we can with the 1 hour cap kept in mind as well. So first off, let me introduce our two outstanding guests. I'd like to invite both Rekha and Abhishek to join us on the Zoom. It's my delight to welcome them to the session tonight. So before I ask them to speak and introduce themselves, let me give them a brief introduction. Rekha Menon, who needs no introduction really. She's the chairperson and the senior managing director of Accenture India, a leading industry voice on advanced technology-led innovation and socio-economic progress. She's been recognized as one of India's most powerful women in the technology world. Welcome, Rekha. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
And joining us is Abhishek Poddar. Abhishek is the force behind the upcoming Museum of Art and Photography, MAP in Bangalore. And he's going to host this event in terms of the demo and what it is that was the genesis of this technology. As a trustee to MAP, he's donated an initial leadership gift, a substantial portion of his family's art collection that underpins the MAP seed collection. He's on various boards and committees across India and serves on the advisory committees of the India-Europe Foundation for New Dialogues, headquartered in Rome, and the Lincoln Center Global Advisory Council. So, both of them come with a massively rich experiences. I think, Rekha, you're not just the chairperson of Accenture, but in that role, you help kind of lead a huge workforce here in India and around the world that's actually helping digital transformation at some of the largest companies across the globe. And so you're bringing some of that underpinnings and cutting edge technologies to this experience that MAP is hoping to deliver at their museum, their new museum here in Bangalore. And under your stewardship, Accenture in India has actually strengthened its position as an innovation engine and created value for Fortune 500 companies across the world. So, thank you both for joining us. We'll have more detailed bios of both our speakers and other speakers to come in the chat window. And before I go further, I wanted to kind of have Abhishek tell us a little bit about the genesis of this project. Abhishek, can you enlighten us on what both what got you into this and what we're going to see later, right?
Thank you, Ravi. So what really was the beginning of this idea and this collaboration that we are unveiling today was a conversation with Rekha and how art and technology can meet and play a role together. And we started with various different thoughts, right from the architecture, the entire framework for technology at the museum to different experiences. And it was really when Rekha insisted we go and see what their labs is doing. And that really showed us all kinds of new technologies that people were excited with and they were exploring. And this really became the genesis of MAP Labs, where art and technology meet. And we are happy to say that the very first project was with Accenture in this space. And before we do anything else with technology, it would be right to do it with Accenture first. So that was really the genesis. And we then decided what this should be after discussing many such ideas. And that's what we are here to see. So I'll let Rekha talk about her part of this before we move on to what this experience really is.
Absolutely. Rekha, please tell us a little bit about your vision for both, this experience, this museum experience that you've helped support here with your team and your technologies and your experts, but also where you think this could lead, right, further down.
So first of all, thank you very much for the kind words that you said earlier. Half of them are not true. But this was a fabulous opportunity because let me step back a bit. If I have to look at our purpose, Accenture's purpose, we've defined it as delivering on the promise of technology and human ingenuity. So it's not either or, it's and, right? And therefore, we were committed to drive innovation and change, both internally and externally, whether it's for our clients or externally. And when Abhishek and I started talking, that was a huge opportunity we saw where we could bring our knowledge, we could bring our capabilities in cutting edge technologies, and Abhishek and team could bring their domain expertise in the arts field, which we knew nothing about. And together we could collaborate and build something unique, innovative, interesting to change the museum experience. And that's what got us all excited, actually, both sets of teams. And that's what we did. And that's what you're going to see in a little while. And I've been warned not to go too much in depth so that I don't spoil the experience of what you're going to see. So that was the genesis. So basically, it is cutting edge technology, working with labs to see how we can innovate, but then collaborating very closely with MAP.
Awesome. So, we are all excited to hear about this experience, Abhishek. I think Rekha's, kind of little bit tantalize us with what's coming up next. I know Accenture is so expert in digital transformation and all the technologies that underpin new experiences. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to see before we see it?
Okay, so just to tell you what we are doing is Rekha's team at Accenture helped us create a digital persona for an artist and an artist who's no longer living. We debated who this should be, and we jointly decided on MF Hussain. Now, we knew that this would be a slightly controversial figure, but he was standing so much taller than any other Indian artist that we had to have him. I had a personal interest in choosing Hussain because my relationship with him goes back to the time I was 15. And that's when we became friends. It was an accidental meeting on a Calcutta street. And the next day he came over for tea to my home. And he has been my guest and stayed with us on several occasions since then. We've painted on the same canvas together, and he really was the person who got me interested in art. So it was, in a sense, doing something for one of my gurus. And he clearly was standing so much taller than anybody else in the modern and contemporary scene that we thought, and his own life has been so exciting that it would be amazing to do. So this is what we're going to see. It's a experience where you can ask Hussain a question related to his life. And we leave the second session where you're discussing the technology as to how this was done. Now, of course, you can only ask him about stuff that he already has spoken about, because when we discussed what can we get him to say, Accenture's team was very particular about not letting him say anything that he has not already said. So whatever you're hearing may not be in the exact same order, but it is stuff that he has so far said either in an interview or in a recording in the past. So his voice was synthesized through that, and through AI, you can ask him something related to certain topics. What we've done is we've broken up all the questions into family, personal, work, fraternity, his filmmaking and stuff like that. So you can choose one of those questions to tell you what you can speak about, because if you ask him when is COVID going to go, he's not going to have an answer. Also, this is based on technology. He may or may not be able to understand your accent. And if he doesn't understand the question, he might give you a smart answer. So it is not without any flaw, but it's a damn good thing.
Okay, so may I just add in a little bit here?
Absolutely.
Because just to build on what Abhishek said, I just want to be clear that this is the first AI-based digital persona in India, in the arts world. And you're right, we were very clear that while this is innovative and demonstrates a new way of observing art, we want to be very responsible in our use of technology. And we want to be very responsible in the fact that it represents whatever Hussain, since it's his digital persona, whatever he ever uttered and spoke about. So this is not a robo, which you can program for something. This is an AI-based digital persona based on a real individual and his experiences and his utterances.
Great. So we're going to see an experience that's authentic to and very real Hussain coming back to digital life. So Abhishek, anything else you want to add before we go to the demo?
What we've done is we have done a little video showing where different people are asking him questions, right from kids as well as adults, and their reactions and experiences to it. And, there was another thing I'd like to add here. This was all to be done in the holographic stage at MAP. And it was working brilliantly over there until we realized that the museum's not going to open for another year because of COVID. So when Rekha and me had another chat, and I said, I don't know when people are going to come in physically to see it. So she said, and maybe by that time, there are going to be 10 other digital personas, and this technology itself is not going to be so new. So why don't we move it online? So at the end of today's session, you can go onto the MAP website and chat with Hussain. So you don't have to come physically to MAP's space, to the digital stage, but through your laptop, through your desktop, through your phone, through your iPad, you can chat with Hussain and ask him anything.
Awesome. So we better get to the video before we lose people who are going to go to the MAP website to start chatting with Hussain.
That's only starting at 7 o'clock.
Very good. So I'll go till 7 o'clock. So hold on, watch the video and be part of the conversation, and then we'll go there. So could I request, go ahead, Abhishek. Do you have something?
I thought we'll just switch off our videos.
Exactly. That's what we're going to suggest. Please turn off videos and mute yourselves while we go through the demo, and we'll come right back.
Hi, I'm Aditya, and I'm a 3D hologram engineer for OPZ. 3D holograms has multiple use cases in a wide range of fields, but this one is very unique because it's the first of its kind in a museum space. This experience is a great example of the power of AI, and Accenture has helped us build the entire software which powers this experience. This entire project is about bringing back Hussain to life. So there's many people like me who's never had the fortune to meet Hussain in real life. So be it children or be it adults, everybody enjoys this experience because he's just there again.
What is your name?
You can call me Hussain Saab, but my full name is Makbul Fida Hussain.
How old are you?
Want to take a guess? As of today, I am over 100 years old.
Are you real?
As close to you, enough to impress you. Please ask me, what do you need to know about me?
Why are you at MAP?
I'm here to enable art education as part of one of the amazing programs at MAP.
How would you describe yourself?
A painter who prefers to walk barefoot, a filmmaker with a difference, and a lover of the most expensive cars on earth.
So what is your favorite painting?
The painting of the two sisters, who are actually my daughters.
Why do you talk like that?
I'm over 100 years old now. That is why you will find me fumbling when I talk.
Why do you always hold paintbrush in your hand?
I always paint on the run, so I prefer to have my brush with me always.
When was your first solo exhibition?
My first exhibition was in Zurich in 1952. Through this work, I was awarded the Padma Shri in 1955.
The great thing about this experience is that it can be engaged through multiple different platforms like laptops, mobile phones, and also in live through the Holo stage. And it has the potential to reach so many different diverse audiences. And currently it's available only on the Holo stage, but we are subsequently rolling it out on the web platform too.
So why don't you wear slippers, Hussain?
I stopped wearing shoes in 1964 because Maktabar, a Hindi poet, was in a coma. I did not know him closely, but I felt the pain of his poetry. I wanted to feel the heat and pain in the soles of my feet. The feet, nailed on earth, are never tired to follow the booming echo.
It was very nice and it was pretty good. I liked it.
I learned much about MF Hussain. I only knew that he was a painter and knew nothing else about him.
I really enjoyed the experience. I've never met Hussain before. I've never done anything like this before, and it was really nice. I liked it.
It was a very unique experience, especially to do with museums in India. It's definitely very unique. It was also very interactive and a great way to learn.
It was wonderful to interact with Hussain virtually. And although I am familiar with Hussain, I still ended up learning a lot. And it's definitely been an experience that I've never had before. So it was great.
Really amazing knowing one of the greatest artists of India, knowing about his work and his experience. It was really amazing.
I think it was an incredible intersection between technology and art and a fine example of where that's going. It was extremely educational and interactive.
Terrific. So, that was an exciting experience, Abhishek. I think, it really gives us a peek into the future in some sense, right? What MAP's going to look like.
This is all thanks to Accenture.
Thank you. And, congratulations, Rekha, to you and your team for pulling off a really exciting experience and giving us kind of a real, like I said, a preview let us crystal ball gaze a little bit in terms of what we'll be experiencing in the art world. And
yes, and I have to thank the labs team for building this. And it is true. I mean, the idea was that people would experience this for real at the museum. And so we had to adapt very quickly and go online, which is still not the same thing as when you're virtually, as you can see the children, they're there with him. And it's a very real experience then.
Got it. So, and we look forward to Abhishek, the version 2 of this at the physical museum, which will hopefully open as soon as this pandemic lifts. So, that brings me to my first question. We'll have a little bit of Q&A before we go to the audience. And, please, anybody in the audience that wishes to ask either Rekha or Abhishek a question about this partnership, the experience, the future of both tech in museums and other digital transformations, please just pop them into the chat window and we'll try and pick up a few of them. So Abhishek, first and foremost, is this the future, right? Especially given where we are with the the pandemic? Do you see most of these interactions really helping democratize art, broad basing it in a huge way that has not been possible before, especially across India?
I think so, Ravi. I feel technology has been able to reach it to people where it was just not possible before. And we've seen in the last 1 year how much art has been consumed. The fact is that it can never really match the real thing. So, and I do hope that a day never comes where you don't need to go somewhere because the digital experience is going to be as good as the physical. But we still like to go to the opera rather than just, of course, we can watch it on TV, similarly to a game or a play. And I hope that technology becomes better, but doesn't become as good as the real thing, because that would actually be a sad day. Yes, looking at what we've also managed to achieve in the last 1 year, I'm sure technology was always available to make this happen, but we just never embraced it that much until we were forced into a corner to do so. And in our own example, we were to launch physically last year, but the pandemic didn't make it possible because our building wasn't ready. Yet we continued with the dates that we had promised to open, and we instead did a digital launch. And what would have otherwise been an experience and a program done for just 200 people in the physical space, we've crossed some 70,000 views for our digital opening festival. So even when the space opens back physically and the world returns to some kind of normalcy, the digital world is here to stay. And you will never be able to get the same numbers physically that you can get digitally. So a hybrid world is what we're going to live in.
Great. Makes a lot of sense.
That's music to my ears, actually, Abhishek, because that's exactly what we're talking about, that in the pandemic, it has shown us that the world is digital. Digital is here to stay, and it's a hybrid model. And I actually will argue with you on that you hope the digital experience is never as good as the actual experience, because what you've done, you just said it, if the pandemic hadn't happened, you wouldn't have reached, if you hadn't gone digital, you would not have reached the kind of audience that you were able to.
Absolutely.
Right. So we have to make that experience better for your audience. As companies, as technology companies, we have to make sure that the experience that they get is so real that they don't have to come to the museum. They may, but they don't have to.
But whatever you do with technology, just keep that 1%.
So, Abhishek, you better keep up with the Accenture team. They're going to overtake you in the physical world. So, Rekha, this brings up a good question. I think you brought it up in the initial discussion as well, that, a lot of care, even in this 5-minute demo, we took a lot of care to make sure we were doing it responsibly, making sure it is authentic to the character being projected. There's just a lot of talk now and a lot of debate underway, right, about the risks and rewards of using technology, especially these very powerful AI technologies that can both think as if they were some persona, even look like that persona, speak like that persona. We've talked about deep fakes and things like that can really perturb people, right, into thinking the world is topsy-turvy. As museums and others in greater numbers, especially large industries, start to adopt these technologies and start to embed them in their processes, in their marketing, in their outreach, in their interactions with the customers, what advice do you have for them? The whole larger question of the power and the responsibility that comes with the power, right?
Absolutely. So, so first thing, technology is just a tool, right? You can use it for good or you can use it for bad. And therefore, when you're using it, and you're absolutely right, we have to choose very carefully how we are, which problems are we trying to solve? How are we going to use technology, and what's the impact it's likely to have, right? Just to take the MAP example, the Hussein that we saw, right? And it's very easy to imagine that the same deep fake could be used in a wrong way, right? And we have multiple examples of that. Recently there was an audio deep fake which tricked the CEO of a European energy firm out of over 200,000 euros because it was a real deepfake of one of his staff. And that has happened, right? But here you saw an example of a digital persona using deepfake technology for good, right? It's to inform, it's to educate, it's to democratize art for people. So it really depends on how you use technology. Do you use it responsibly, or do you use it for all the wrong reasons? And also, as you do it, and stop me before I go too deep into this, is you have to be very careful that you are also not building biases into your technology, because that's the first thing that starts happening. And we build biases in all the time, depending on how we come from. And again, there have been lots and lots of examples. I could spend many hours talking about it, but you have to make sure that technology is responsible, it's transparent, that you're checking for biases.
And hopefully you'll build the technology with more balance and a flatter world in the digital world in some sense. Absolutely. So I think, we, in the video, Abhishek, we had a lot of the younger generation, and I think they will even adopt to this much easier, right? And embrace this much more easily. So, can you tell us a little bit about how MAP is thinking through the experience? Because you're really building a museum for the next generation almost, right? Because you're building so much technology into it. You're going to be kind of, first adopters are going to be these young kids who are going to walk through schools, all kinds of youth, right? So give us a sense of how you're thinking that through.
So Ravi, we have a lot of exciting things to do with education and technology at MAP, but I'm actually the worst person to speak to you about this because I know the least amount of what happens in this technology space. Our CTO, who you're going to be speaking with a little later, Mayank, he was joking that before the pandemic, his office was in the basement of the building, and today he's got the corner office. And that's really what's happened, and it's technology that is leading everything today. So it's better asked to him, but I can tell you technology is really what we are stepping the gas on. And it's not just technology, it's also digital. Right. And I see there's a question being posed to me that it's exciting to see the use of technology for art education at MAP. Will the museum program also be invested in showing work by digital artists working with AI and new media technology? Of late, we've been hearing so much about NFTs and digital art. And all I can say is there is something that we are planning in that. We are still wrapping our head around it. And very soon you'll be hearing something in that domain.
Got it. Great. So maybe you'll break it on another session in the future. So Rekha, a little bit about, you've been investing in arts education. You feel it's crucial going forward. I've heard you speak on the importance of STEAM at meetings we've been at together, especially in this new digital landscape that we live in. And, can you tell us a little bit about why the A in the STEAM matters, right?
Using that, I've been on that agenda for a while, saying we don't have to use STEM, we have to go to STEAM for a while, and A stands for arts. It's fairly obvious. One, if you see, the world problems are not simple, they're complex, and it's changing really quickly. And therefore, in order to solve it, you need broad-based thinking. You don't need siloed functional thinking. And the only way that can happen is if you go beyond STEM into arts. So that's one. You'll have left brain and right brain thinking to solve problems. Second, from our perspective, if you see, technology is actually, there are a lot of, is changing quickly, and therefore a lot of the routine is getting automated, which means that human ingenuity, human creative skills become more valuable. And those are needed now to solve the problems. And therefore, the emphasis on arts has to be there. And therefore MAP, absolutely, because in the hope that without that, we're not going to be doing holistic approaches to any solution or be innovative.
Rekha, this is absolute music to my ears because I have been talking about STEM to STEAM since I can't remember how long. And there are very few people who actually believe that until the pandemic really started. And that's really our focus. How do we put the A back in there and make it important, not just for schools, but for every corporate as well? Yeah. And I think so many of them have actually realized that, and therefore we managed to get their support at MAP. And even this is exactly what our digital membership offers, because you're doing about an event like this, we do about 7 or 8 events a month. We've got so many offerings, which is why corporates are even wanting their colleagues and their employees to become members, and they're buying it for them. So we do hope that museum going is going to become a regular feature.
And arts and the A will come into steam because it'll help us in terms of how we build technology, how we solve problems. Absolutely agree.
Absolutely. So Rekha, one question for you from the audience. What other uses do you see for this kind of digital persona, right, across the landscape, outside of maybe the kind of experience we saw here today? Where else could we leverage this?
Anywhere that you can think of, because technology is once you have it, then you decide on the application. So it's already being used. For example, in healthcare, the digital personas are being used to actually map, do almost realistic models of tumors, for example. Or a British charity used a deep fake of David Beckham, actually, to give messages on malaria in very many different languages, right? So that's already been done. Reuters tried one where they used a digital persona to read the news, impersonating one of their real anchors, and nobody could make out the difference. So the application is huge. It is just limited by the imagination and where it can be utilized.
Absolutely. And in fact, Rekha, Abhishek and I were kidding earlier that, I think in his next session, he's going to use one of these avatars instead of me here. And, maybe later we'll even have one for you and Abhishek, Rekha, next year this time.
Could be, but you will not be able to replace, as I said, the human ingenuity bit of it. You won't be able to replace our creativity, our problem solving, hopefully, and our knowledge bases.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, hey, I wanted to, we want to segue to the next segment. I wanted to thank both of you. Thank you, Rekha. Thank you, Abhishek, for joining us on this first half. I'd invite you all obviously to stay on and, maybe turn off your videos as I invite the other two guests we have. But Abhishek, do you have something in closing?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that thanks to what Accenture did for us, now we have about 6 different tech companies working with us in MAP Labs, where they've each picked up one problem area and finding a solution for that and working pro bono with us. So like what you saw with Hussain, you're going to see not digital personas, but various other ingenious things coming up in store.
Absolutely. We look forward to visiting MAP in person, to seeing all these technologies blended together in an amazing experience in person, right? As well.
And to me, this is fabulous because this is showing the example of collaboration between technology and arts. Doesn't matter whether it's Accenture or anybody else, and this is the way forward.
Absolutely, and I think Rekha, if Accenture can help MAP deliver these kinds of experiences, it'll actually, be easy in the business world, the regular business world. Industry probably has simpler problems than this one in terms of delivering an awesome experience. Thank you, Rekha. Thank you, Abhishek. And, please do keep on, stay on the session while we invite our other two guests on second half.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now let's move on to the next segment, and I'd like to bring on 2 technologists who've been closely involved with the development of this initiative. I'd like to invite Shubhashis Sengupta and Mayank Manish to join us. Welcome, Shubhashis. Welcome, Mayank.
Hi, Ravi.
Hi, Ravi.
Welcome.
Perfect. Just bear with me a second while I introduce both of you, and then we can dive into the conversation. Shubhashis Sengupta is the Technology Labs Fellow and Head of Research at Accenture Technology Labs in Bangalore. He specializes in technologies such as large-scale distribution systems, cloud computing, software engineering, machine learning, natural language processing. He has over 30 plus granted patents, 55 plus patent applications, and over 60 research papers in international journals and conferences to his credit. Very impressive, Shubhashis. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ravi.
Great. And
I'm
Mayank.
proud to be this.
Yeah, thank you. Mayank Manish heads technology at MAP and is a seasoned IT professional with experience in corporates, startups, and consulting. His latest venture, OpEasy, brings immersive and interactive 3D hologram solutions to the forefront. He's driving innovation to deploy new age technologies on MAP as part of the experience being built for the audience. And obviously his startup was involved with this experience that we saw today, and in many others that he has been working on MAP on delivering these immersive, really bleeding edge, cutting edge technologies. So welcome, Mayank, and there are detailed bios of both of our speakers here in the chat window for those who wanted to dive in deeper. So reminding the audience that you can post any questions you have for our speakers in the chat window. Please just ping us there. We'll try and pick up a few there as possible. So, Mayank, first and foremost, please tell us a little bit about how you built this. And we just want to understand the technologies involved, what it took, what challenges you faced, and a little bit even future gazing later, right?
Sure, most definitely. Well, like Abhishek had spoken, right in the beginning, it was that idea that came to us when we actually visited the tech labs at Accenture, and we said that if we want to build something really futuristic and innovative, we were already getting in the holograms. We said, what can we do on the holograms? And we said, can we recreate somebody? Can we make someone alive again? And but once that was decided, that's when we got these ideas from Accenture, wherein their team came in. They understood the kind of concept that we had thought of at MAP, which is basically to get an artist to be live again and be able to interact with him. And that's how it actually started. Now, thereafter, there was a lot of effort that went in on both the sides. So, on the tech side, I think I'll let Shubhashis speak, on what they did on the software side. But for us, it was, how do we get all the research done, passed on to the Accenture team? How do we get the holograms, it's a very new technology, up and running and ready to be able to project such an intelligent system and a software? And how do we bring all of these three angles together? The research, that is the information about Hussain, the AI-based software that Accenture was building, and power it onto the hologram. So that's what we worked upon. But I think it kind of worked out well because we just kept trying. There was a lot of trial and error. That's what all innovation projects are all about. Sure. And at the end of the day, we also had the museum team to contend with, because they always have that eye for perfection. And explaining to them that this is innovation, it's going to take a little bit of time to perfect. So all those aspects to it, and yeah, we ended up with something which I think was tremendous. And finally, of course, transforming it into a web and mobile experience also. That was very, very important given the current day and age. So, quickly changing track when it was needed. So overall, these are the tech elements there. I'll let Shubhashis talk on the software side.
Perfect. And Shubhashis, maybe, we've now launched kind of the first digital persona of an artist in the art world in India. What was the process? What did you all do? How does the technology work? How easy or hard was it? And where is this headed?
Yeah, I think this is a very fascinating and very interesting problem to look at from Accenture Labs. And we have been working on a broader agenda of something called technology for good. And if you solve something for society, I bet you can solve something for the business as well, because the problems are so difficult to solve there, right? So as Mayank talked about, there are multiple angles to it. It's not just about the technology. So I'll just talk few points on the technology, but I'll also like to bring in aspects of, for example, cognitive psychology and ethics, AI ethics and responsible AI and other things. So as Rekha mentioned, this is perhaps the first digital persona, conversational digital persona in the art world, not only in India, but perhaps worldwide, right? And there are several firsts here. So we really need to find out what actually works, and there were a lot of trials and errors. So if you break this down, the first thing was, how do we make Hussain come real, alive, right? So there's something called phase superimposition. So we don't have Hussain now. We cannot really we can just get Hussain from the digital archives. We got the footage from Hussain's. We actually had somebody who would actually play the role, as if like play acting. And then can we superimpose using AI technologies, deep learning technologies, something which is called deepfake, which is now used in a good sense in a way here. And can we transform that artist into Hussein? The second was not just transforming the face, right? Transforming the gesture, but it's also transforming the voice. So we could bring in the speech synthesis. So we could actually get voice samples of Hussein and then really use those voice samples to really make this useful in the context that what we're actually using here in the question answering part, right? And that actually was quite difficult, because if you know, learning from something and applying it something else, we call this transfer learning. It's very difficult to do that. The third part was it was conversational. It's not just a digital persona who would actually just wave at you or smile at you or frown at you, but it actually would converse with you, right? So there's a conversational AI thing was built in, right? The fourth thing was about which Mayank's team helped us build is basically that 3D holograph, right? So how can we bring this in a holographic sense so that you can really make it more immersive experiences, right? And then there is this issue of emotion detection, the emotion generation as well. But see, you would have seen this from the small video clip that we've seen. The Hussein, the portrait was quite funny and then quite smart, and you know, and quite alive to the kind of different questions that you have. So there is obviously the emotion angle to it. So there's an emotional AI stuff also built in. And then I talked about psychology. So what was Hussein's persona like? If we are building a digital persona of Hussein, we cannot really build it different from what Hussein was there, right? You know, I mean, so basically the persona has to be copied. And it has the Hussein, the digital Hussein is actually interacting with a whole bunch of people, you know, adults and children alike. So therefore, it has to be cognizant of the atmosphere, right? So in an immersive way. So basically this organizational psychology also comes in. And then the issues of ethics, we cannot really make Hussein say, a digital person say something which Hussein would not have, right? We should actually have this transparency. We should have this AI ethics. We should have this biases that Rekha talked about. So whole gamut of things. So it's as much art as Mayank says that the museum team helped us getting all the content, actors, the finding out whether this works or not, really testing it out in the real environment.
Got it. No, very good. I think, you know, you've just kind of given us a feel for all the different levels of intelligence that go in here, right? It's just so many dimensions that on which you're trying to create an authentic experience. It's partially physical in the hologram. You're trying to create a physical experience almost, right? Immersive. All the way down to, you know, right context, the authenticity in terms of the persona of the digital persona, right? The actual persona that the digital persona is projecting. I think that's absolutely true. And I love the way he answered, I'm almost 100 years old, you know, to the kid, right?
That was the most interesting thing, Ravi. The best part was when we were rolling it out at the lab and, you know, just before the shoot, when the kids came in. I think the most satisfying thing for us was when we heard one of the kids say, hey, what's that old man doing there in the corner? You know, that was proof of the pudding that it was nearly real. So
nice. And I think, you know, just being able to ask all kinds of questions like, you know, why are you holding a paintbrush all the time? And, you know, why do you speak the way you speak? I mean, you know, I'm sure those are hard to train. And, you know, I'm sure we're going to experience that on the site as well when you release it live. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg in some sense, right? I think, Mayank, maybe, you know, I can ask the next question of you, which is, you know, we've experienced something here today that's really groundbreaking. But like I said earlier, tip of the iceberg, there's so much that we could do, right? So can you tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about the future? What new technologies are coming into play beyond just hologram, digital persona? What else you're trying to bring into MAP, right?
Oh, yes, sure. You know, one of the things that, you know, I've wanted to do for MAP is make sure that every experience that we are building for the museum visitors is something very unique. It's something very, very innovative. That's the only thing I've been after the museum team, that, you know, anything that we do, let's only work on those ideas which people have not already seen elsewhere, which people have not already implemented. So I'll give you some examples. You know, of course, we're talking of using technologies like AI quite extensively. But, you know, this is one example that we saw. There's another one that we're doing with a very large company. Actually, we'll be announcing that very soon. And that's where we are using AI to map to use the maps collection and match it with, so many artifacts all over the other museums, bring that together. So using AI out there, we're building a platform that will allow people, individuals like you and me to manage our collections at home. And we just offer that, from maps perspective. We're going to use sensors, we're going to use beacons. We're extensively going to use 3D holograms, even though they're new. You saw one form on the stages, but imagine if I'm able to, use photogrammetry, have 3D scans of the entire collection, and everything is available on demand or as 3D holograms when people come into the museum. That's what we are implementing at the building. A very interesting thing that we're doing is the 3D holo tours. The tours will allow people to immersively go to various sites, which are rich with Indian art and culture and heritage. We all know about that, but it's so difficult for people to get there, to see what's the source of all that art. So we're going to allow them to go there, travel there, immersively again, interactively, and all that is going to be available as experiences at the museum. Of course, we've got to, not just keep the serious audiences there. We also need to do something for the kids. So, implementing things like interactive experiences, game-based experiences. We're building a treasure hunt, which is digital. We're building, a searching of shapes and patterns where you just go for any shape and you'll be able to see what all objects in the museum's collection match that shape, virtual art making. So we're trying to do all of these using technologies that, of course, are maturing or are already there. But I think we are focusing on one thing: innovation, excitement, and interactivity.
Awesome. And I think, we're soon going to see an experience where children will be painting in Hussein's gallery at some point along with him, right? And coached by him. Who knows? I think, that might spark, the creative genius in so many that might otherwise be latent, right? And that's the power, I guess, of this technology and, this whole new digital revolution, right? So Shubhashis, coming back to you here a little bit about how large companies, right, could jump in, in terms of what you've seen traditionally, in terms of their skill sets, their interests, their capabilities. How could they contribute in spaces like the museum experience? How could they help, make museum experiences more tech savvy? What's your take on that, right?
Yeah, it's a very good questions. Actually, as you know, this pandemic has hastened it, but there's digital transformation already started, all across the industry. It's not just in the museum industry, but I mean across, and in fact, performing arts is one of the sector which is actually getting transformed quite a bit, because you don't have physical presence in the in a New York Philharmonic anymore. You actually have to listen to digital version of it, right? So
and paradoxically, Shubhashis, we now have a larger audience than ever before. That's available.
Absolutely. So your reach is increasing, right?
Yeah.
Your reach is increasing much more than, and yeah. So I think, and also telling, I think Accenture has a rich history of working with a lot of such creative companies, and performing arts companies, all over the world. So you have worked with Smithsonian Institute, for example. You have worked with Louvre, trying to change their digital experiences. From, of course, not through a digital persona, but maybe through a digital channel, right? If you can go and use technology like sensors and beacons and see what you can see, you can stand in a particular position and see what you can, what it can tell about you. Not if you're looking at a painting, you look at the history of the painting and who has built and what are the trivia about this and stuff like that. So there has been a lot of changes across the channels on how the digital persona would work, and this kind of technology would work. And we call them in Accenture, we call this masters of change. In really in the technology world, if you don't embrace change, embrace technology, obviously you'll get up and dead. And it's not just about the in the museum sector per se, but like Rekha mentioned, the digital persona are now, or avatars are now everywhere in healthcare, if you see, and in manufacturing, for example, you have this digital twins coming up, right? And you would be amazed to know that I can sit at my home and can really simulate a very complex, large power plant, through a digital twin architecture. and see and simulate and see where those, maybe those false points are, what are those, positives and negatives and pressure points, and basically, as if you're actually doing a cold start and cold testing of the entire plant before it goes live. So digital technologies are being used. I mean, whether it's avatars, or the personas, bots, automation agents, digital twins, is being used everywhere right now, and we see that it's increasing adoption. And pandemic has really hastened it. So, to cut the long story short, this is actually a technology which is going to, at combinatorial way, AI, XR, 3D technologies, which is XR, blockchain technologies, technologies which are coming, for example, edge computing, neuromorphic computing, in various other ways. Actually, we are looking at in Accenture Labs how to actually use these technologies to really, kind of change that sectors.
Got it. And Shubhashis, we got a question from the audience that, they wanted to know a little deeper. Can you dive a little deeper into the conversational AI? What was the technology behind that? How does that work? How did you get that to kind of match the authenticity of a real life Hussein, right?
Yeah. So in this particular work, we used a technology from Microsoft because the time period is very short. So we used Microsoft Luis, which is basically a conversational AI technology, quite mature one. And as you mentioned, so as Abhishek mentioned, we actually bucketed them into different types of sections. So you can ask about Hussein's life to some extent, artworks and history and other things, right? So for some, few such sections. So we call them intents in a conversational AI community. So we train those, agents on those, and you always can come up with something which we have not thought of, right? So that there is this human ingenuity how to actually create really smart answers to that. So it was basically, a kind of a trained agent on conversational AI technology, along with some of the smart answers that we could have, and also we baked in emotion there.
Got it. Mayank, can you tell us a little bit more about that as well on your end? What, how you kind of maybe, took what the Accenture team built and also then merged in the hologram experience, right?
Sure, most definitely. So first of all, it was collaborative. So, right from day one, we were talking with the Accenture team, and they were very keen to see that, okay, it's very easy to do it as a software, as a standalone on a computer, that's fine, but how will it work on a hologram? So we had to do the R&D to make sure that our holograms were fast enough and they were able to match the speed at which Accenture was actually, processing the entire experience. Thereafter, it was a lot of combination of deploying the software, putting up the right size on the hologram, getting the lighting right, getting the sound right. It always used to be a scenario where Accenture team would say that, yes, this sounds perfect. We are able to understand. And, since we were listening, to it on the holograms, we were like, okay, why is this not coming right? And then we realized, okay, we've got to use some of the audio mixers on the hologram so that we are able to hear this better. So it was a combination of using the right projection technology, the right distances over there, the right lighting inside the hologram setup, and thereafter the right audio. So I think it was a combination of all of these that allowed us to perfect, the experience as it's available now.
Got it. So I think, Shubhashis, as we wrap up here, could you crystal ball gaze a little bit into the future, how these technologies, as you see them, and you're such an expert across so many of these leading edge technologies and bringing them together to really create this, almost superhuman experience, right? Persona, it feels like, because, how will they change the visitor experience to museums, like, in the future? What do you see further? I mean, just like, project out 5-10 years.
Yeah, maybe we can bring museum to our homes, right? As Abhishek was mentioning, right? You already have that in a 3D hologram. You have to visit MAP to experience that, but you can. Right now, they're launching this website in the mobile app, so you can actually kind of experience this from your drawing room, right? And you can actually have your kids look at it and learn more things than they could otherwise could have learned. And then that's actually happening. In some cases, we are actually using technology to even synthesize newer musics, for example, with the And there have been some challenges and games where people say that is a leaderboard, which of the technology can, which AI can bring the best music, in a particular genre, right? So that's something which is happening. Maybe you can see, maybe an AI would win Grammy awards in 3 years down the line. And I'm just crystal gazing, but that might happen. But I'm not really putting down the human ingenuity part of it, obviously. But we actually working on something called creative AI in one of the labs in Dublin, where we are essentially taking we actually have AI on one hand and master chefs on the other hand. We are creating recipes. So you can give a recipe and AI can change this and see, can it make it more testy? Can it make it, kind of to a particular test of a particular region? And, you can just pick and choose and select, right? We now have virtual testers of, let's say, coffee, right? So you don't have to really go and test coffee. You can actually get the smell and then see that if you really like the blend or not. And we can do that for the wine as well, not just coffee. And the human part of it is, of course, also very important, that, we are bringing all this technology. What impact does it make on our future generation, right? So in this particular project, which Mayank was talking about, I came to know from the team that, we actually had 2 bunch of kids. One were given, just a plain museum kind of tour, right? You just go and then, as if you're going to Indian Museum in Calcutta, right? You just go and look at those, artifacts and the statues and figures and figurines and those portraits, and then you get some booklets, and then after 7 days you ask questions on those things, how much they have learned, and then for this particular case, we actually had another bunch of kids which interact with a digital person of Hussein, and then ask them the same set of questions. So you'll find it quite encouraging. The second bunch of students actually learned much more. Kids learned much more. They got it experiential learning, as you can say. They could relate. They could actually really visualize what's actually going on. So I think this is a huge potential in healthcare, in education, you name it, right? In any other section that you can see, digital technologies are going to change.
Great. And I'm glad, Shubhashis, my kids aren't on this session, because they'd use that as evidence that they don't need less screen time. But, thank you. That was great.
The good screen time, like good tip.
And thank you for a nice kind of walkthrough of the future, right? That this holds. Mayank, in closing, a few closing thoughts on, the impact all of this digital technology you'll have on MAP and the experience you all are trying to build across, the MAP experience, right?
Well, digital is the way forward. There is no doubt in it. I always say, like, the digital museum will become the gateway into the physical museum. So I don't think there is any going away from it. It's only going to increase, and it's great for the entire sector. It's great for all museums, actually. Like it or not, got to adopt technology, experiment with innovative solutions, because that's what will excite people into coming into, MAP or any museum for that matter, and then lead them into the physical space to see the real art.
Great. And, I wanted to thank both of you. Thank Rekha Menon, Abhishek Poddar for being our guests on this session today. Thank you all. Thank you, Shubhashis.
Thank you.
Special thank you to our Indian Sign Language interpreter, Martha, who's from Signable, who's been, I think we've been keeping her very busy in the background. Thank you, Martha. A big thanks to Accenture and the MAP teams who work behind the scenes to pull off this experience. I'd like to read off a few names from the MAP team: Shilpa, Vijay Krishnan, Priscilla Roxburgh, Shruti Rao, and from Accenture, Rahul Anand, Gaurav Kapoor, Alex Abraham, Garima Mishra, and Shubhashini Patamraman. And a final big thank you to our audience who've been hanging out with us for the last hour. I hope you will visit the MAP website to experience this digital experience. And I hope we'll see you at MAP in the not so distant future to come in and see both the physical experience and the digital experience woven into that space as well. So, thank you all for joining us this evening. And we look forward to you visiting us. In the chat window is the URL for the website. So please do join us at future sessions as well. You can register at the MAP website. to keep yourselves informed. So thank you all. Have a good evening. Stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ravi. Thanks.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.